This is the last class that we're going to be learning about in our opening foundations chapter. And this is a topic I think anybody who goes to high school can relate to. Conflict. Now, I think you are probably better acquainted with conflict than resolving conflict, but we'll talk about both. So, if you missed class, we started off with a brainstorm, and I posed the question, what are the origins of conflict? And I'm going to share with you some of the answers people said. Number one, first and foremost, disrespect. That disrespect is at the core of a lot of conflict in high school, in the adult world, wherever. Misunderstandings. Now, some people spoke of people heard something wrong or they didn't understand it or a text was misinterpreted, that kind of thing. Some people said that there are certain individuals who like drama. They get a kick out of it. Can't say I disagree with them. Jealousy, people have what you want, pettiness, need for control, being extra. This was probably the number one reason. That's why I put it in caps. Not knowing when to keep your mouth closed. A lot of times conflict could be averted just by being quiet. There was the isms and phobias, racism, sexism, ageism, homophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. That's more at a historical level. For our purposes today, it's going to be at a smaller scale, but you're not wrong if you said those things. This one was kind of sad. Seeing those that are different from us are bad. And if you kind of flip the script there and said people who are different than us are interesting, maybe some conflict could be averted. Closed-minded thinking, inability to use words or express yourself, that you resort to conflict because you can't process your words, that sort of thing. And there were some people who said it was unavoidable as human beings, that we will have conflict no matter what. Maybe it's true. Likely it's true. Okay, so if you missed class, you can, probably agree with a lot of this or add something that we may have missed. And here's more of an academic breakdown of it. Relationship conflicts, data conflicts, interest conflicts, value conflicts, structural conflicts. And not to go too deep into the rabbit hole, but if you look at that list that we came up with, is it fairly easy to place these in these 5 areas. So, what do you do if you have conflict? Therein lies the big question. Now, option 1, walk away, ignore. And I know people have been taught this their whole life. Walk away from the problem. But there are some matters that you cannot walk away from. The line was crossed or it's too serious. So, option 2. So you can't walk away for whatever odd reason, or you can't ignore it for whatever odd reason. So I have to take matters into my own hands. So I could use violence, but violence is problematic. And here's why, logically. Let's say I quote unquote win and I beat somebody up. Well, that's assault and battery. I might lose my livelihood and be put in a jail cell instead of coming home every day. I might lose and, get really beaten up and, my teeth knocked out and my nose broken. Neither outcome sounds very good, so let's move on to progressive nonviolent action. Now, the majority of times talking it out works. If you sit down and calmly and rationally talking about something, usually you can find an outcome. But let's say that doesn't work. Then you go to that next level of mediation. We're going to focus on that today. Mediation. Now, mediation is when you have a third person or a third party try to help you reach a resolution, but there's no teeth in it. At the end of the mediation, if you can't come up with a solution, that's okay. You can move on to something like an ombudsman. Now, an ombudsman is a person who investigates complaints against problems. At Michigan State, where I went to university, there was an ombudsman in the dormitory to work out those sorts of things. And then a level heavier, arbitration. Now, arbitration, it's if you hire an arbitrator, whatever they say at the end, that goes. It's like they're a mini judge, and they're rather expensive. And if you don't want to go to arbitration, you can go through a formal civil case or a formal criminal case. So before we move on, I want to give you this visual right here. And you notice little $sign to big $sign. That follows this. Talking it out costs nothing. Mediators, somewhat pricey. But as we move up to arbitrators, more pricey, and then hiring attorneys for your formal cases, that can become very expensive, and I think most human beings want to save money. So, mediation is the area we're going to focus on today, and there are 5 parts to mediation. Number 1, you introduce yourself, you pleasant but neutral. Hey, I appreciate you coming in. You say the ground rules. Now, there's no yelling, screaming, name calling, insults. When one person's talking, the other person's listening. We're going to stay in our seats and explain that you have to come at this mediation in good faith. And that means you're open minded. You're actually willing to have a solution versus you just need to gripe about it. So that's the introduction piece. Okay. So in this scenario, we can see the mediator and the 2 people who are working it out. And that's the introduction piece. Now, part 2 is you allow both sides to tell the story. Say something 5 minutes is arbitrary. You can say 10 or 3. 5, for the purpose of today's class, we're going to use. And begin with the person who requested the mediation. Listen very carefully, be an active listener, and try to identify what they want to have happen. What are they looking? What kind of interest are they looking for? Read body language, that sort of thing. Restate a summary of what you were told. An easy line to use is, if I heard you correctly, and then you break it down, A, B, C, and D. Okay, then you thank the other side for waiting patiently and let them do the same thing. Again, same active listening. What are they really looking for? Read their body language, be neutral, be a good mediator, and restate what they heard. So you tell the story, or they tell the story, excuse me, and then you retell the story. Part 3, identifying alternative solutions. There might be a solution neither side thought about. You could ask them, hey, do you have any solutions to the problem? You could go back and forth, ping pong a little bit. Hey, so what do you want? What are you looking for? You have an idea? And you can write them down as a visual to present to the 2 people. Now, remind them that these are just ideas. They're going to have a chance to evaluate the solution once they have finished brainstorming. Now, I have seen in real life, sometimes it can end here. If it's a really good alternative solution and both sides perk up, oh yeah, that sounds great. Boom, done. You figured it out. You solved the problem. You're a good mediator. Part 4, you evaluate alternative solutions and you kind of go through the process. Is it feasible? Is it satisfactory? Is it affordable? That sort of thing. So you ask the parties, share their feelings about the solution. You listen carefully. Again, I think the most important skill you can have as a mediator is be a good listener. See if you can identify a solution to accommodate their interest. Now, bear in mind, mediations may not reach a solution. Now, if mediation fails, not a big deal. People can go to another option, whether it be formal proceedings or arbitration or whatever. So mediation is loosey-goosey compared to some of these other conflict resolutions. Now, the goal at the end, you reach an agreement and you help the parties identify an agreement they're both willing to accept. Write the agreement down. That's a biggie. Now, as you write the agreement, alternate between what the 2 people will do. Active. Okay, so person A, you agree to do this, this, and this. Person B, you agree to do that, that, and that. Great. Now, include in the agreement what the parties agree would happen if one of the parties doesn't follow through. So they can put their own sanctions for failure to do the right thing in the agreement. And that's the hope of being a mediator. So we're going to simulate this. We're going to get in groups of 3. The oldest person will be the mediator. The second oldest will play the role of Sam or Samantha. The youngest person in the trio will be Chris or Christine. Act it out. It's over a stolen bike. That's not real heavy. We'll get heavier throughout the year, I promise. And you're going to receive a participation grade for giving your best effort. And I would like us to share out the various outcomes. Now, I have gone through this mediation dozens of times through the years. And what's interesting to me is sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And there's a variety of different outcomes from these mediations. And that happens in our little classroom, but the same thing applies in the big adult world. So again, if you miss class, please know the steps of mediation and understand the origins of conflict and that there's various ways that human beings alleviate conflict, talking it out, mediation, an ombudsman, an arbitrator, a formal civil case, formal criminal case. And if you know that, you will be in the loop. So I appreciate you watching.